and welcome to episode number 9 now of the Health of Business Leader. I've been really enjoying doing these episodes. We've had a whole range of guests from Ash Rathod to Fat and Whitbread to, we also be having it, to Eric last week, which I'm showing very soon. Really interesting people. And the gentleman I've got on board today is not going to disappoint as well. We're joined by Rob Sears, who's the owner of Focus for Fitness. Thanks for joining us today, mate. I really appreciate it. So if you don't mind, because I always do this, I let the kind of guest introduce yourselves rather than me doing a poor job of it. Could you just give us a bit of an introduction to who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so thanks, Cam. My name is Rob. I live in Norwich. Moved here about 7 years ago. I am officially classified as blind now, so I'm a blind man that owns my own health and fitness business. I do sports therapy, personal training, running and triathlon coaching. That's my kind of thing. Triathlon is my sport of choice at the moment. So yeah, I'm quite varied. I've got a lot of skills, got my fingers in a lot of pies, which I'm sure we'll get onto throughout the course of it. But yeah, excited to be on, and let's see where we go.
Cool. So you like pie then?
Yeah, normally, I try and stay away. I've got to be healthy, got to stay in shape to keep up with these youngsters. So
Cool, man. Right. So you kind of mentioned a little brief bit about, your journey. We spoke on the phone a couple of weeks ago around, what you've been through, your kind of journey. Tell us a bit more, from kind of the beginning, your journey and taking you up to where you are today.
So sort of career-wise, I guess it's been a bit of a mixed journey for me. I went to university like a lot of people do. Kind of thought that was the path that I needed to follow. Always loved sport, always been involved, inspired. My dad was a runner, crazy runner. Used to, run every day. Whatever the weather, he was mad. He was always out there. So it's a big inspiration. So I'd always been into sport. Got to university, running wasn't really quite as cool then. So I got into some martial arts and weight training. And kind of really focused on that, getting buff, getting out, looking good in a t-shirt, but the health side of things, my flexibility was terrible, mobility was terrible, the diet isn't always the healthiest, I looked great, but I felt awful. And I think I came away from university and really found my love for endurance sport, and from that, I guess it's kind of how my progression as a trainer has kind of gone. It started out being very much about helping people to get, eating lots of protein and getting in the gym, lifting lots of weights, to actually that's not really going to change your life that much, So I kind of really, really got into just being fit, healthy, just a good balanced lifestyle, focusing on the other stuff. The sleep, the food, the drink, the hydration, all the important stuff that was often overlooked. And I struggled for a bit. I know I did one of my very early courses and I thought I was the nuts. I was a qualified personal trainer. I just moved out of London. I'd been working in London for a bit and I moved out to Surrey, and I went for my first freelancer job. And I remember I was full of it. They sold me the dream, the kind of that you pay us a minimal fee and you be on the gym floor as much as you want, as often as you want, and you speak to clients. And I thought, yeah, this is it. I've arrived here. So here I am on the gym floor, sit there. I've got this guy coming in for a personal training session, a little taster, a free session. And he turned up. I mean, I'm 6'4". You can't tell from the video, but I'm 6'4", so I'm not intimidated by people often. But he was taller than me. He was massive, really muscly. And he came up to me. He looked me up and down and he went, well, what are you going to be able to teach me? And I was like, I literally looked back at him and was just like, probably nothing. And he went off. And I got a few clients, but I got to a point probably about 6 months down the line where I was, it was nearly Christmas and it was like, I'm paying more money to work here than I am actually earning.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'd applied for 3 jobs. 2 of them were stacking shelves. because like I'm actually going to earn more money just stacking shelves in Sainsbury's and Tesco's than I am as this trainer. And I applied for another job, which was it's like a fitness professional at a private members club in Surrey. And I thought I'm probably not going to get it, but I'll go for the interview and I'll go through it. I didn't think my future was in fitness or health or anything, and ended up that I got this job. And the interview went well, got the job, and long story short, worked there for 13 years.
Wow.
Honed my craft, learned lots of stuff, did lots of courses, basically anything that I could learn, anything I could do, I laid my hands on it. During the time I was there, I think it's probably a frustration a lot of PTs go through. When you're working with clients, we know the stuff that's going to help them. We know how to draw up meal plans. We know how to structure their exercise. We know how to advise them on other things in life. But do they do it? Not really. So you'll spend hours putting this all together. Here's your workout plan for the week. Come back a week later. How'd it go? Oh, yeah, didn't really get to it. What was this? Blah, blah, blah. So I became not frustrated, but, just curious as to why I was spending time doing all this stuff. And people were paying me to hear this stuff, but they weren't really doing it.
Mm.
So I went back to university and did a degree in psychology at Open University. Finished that in 2012. And then it became another obsession to just learn everything I could about human behavior, mindset, behaviors of clients, people I work with, just anything I could lay my hands on: sports psychology, performance anxiety, all of that stuff. I just couldn't get enough of it. So I was reading up, and that was that. So I sort of met my now wife when I was in Surrey. She was in Norwich at the time, so we met on a Norwich City fans Facebook page, and it's not normal to find an attractive lady that likes the same football team you do.
Yeah.
We just hit it off. We did a year of long distance, so she would travel up to me, I'd travel to her, and after a year, we were like, you know what? It's got to go. Either you move here, I move there. And I had family. I've got friends in this area, so I moved to Norwich. And the interesting thing was that there was a gym in this area, and they were really interested in me because of my sight at the time. So my disability. So they were like, "It's going to be fantastic having you represent our brand, and we'll be able to get you spearheading this kind of campaign of getting more disabled people into working out and being healthy." And I thought, yeah, this is great. So I moved, got to the gym, and I was like, I've done the induction stuff, I've done the normal stuff, I'm ready to go. When does this campaign stuff kick off? Well, I'd really like to get involved. And it was like, oh no, just having you here is enough. That's what we need. So basically I was like, I'm just ticking the box, really, aren't I, to say that you've got a disabled member of staff. So I stood on the gym floor, and I think we're now 16 years later on the gym floor, and I had exactly the same feeling that I had all them years ago.
Right.
When the guy looked at me and said, "What can you do to help?" I was stood there thinking, I shouldn't be. No, this isn't for me. So I came home, told my now wife. She was my girlfriend at the time, but I told her I've quit. I've handed my notice in. I've quit, and she sort of hit the roof and was just like, "What the hell are we going to do for money? This, that, and the other." And I was like, "Look, I just can't make that work. I've got to do it for myself." And we set up this business. She had $5,000 saved away in her bank account from relationships before, and she said, "Look, I've got £5,000. That's what you have to get you started and go and make it work." And 7 years later, here we are.
You had a lot of faith in what you were saying then, right?
She did, yeah. It was shaky for a while because I'd never I'd always wanted to do my own thing, but I'd always done it on the side of something else.
Yeah.
I'd always had that security. So to actually say, you know what, new city, I don't know anyone, we're just going to make it work. It was
Yeah.
a big gamble, but it's the only way for me. It's the only way I was going to make it work.
There's a lot to be said for that though, because you don't know your potential unless you're forced into doing something, right? As if it's, I actually don't have any other option here but than to make
No,
this work. And that's really when you pull that inner strength, that focus, that motivation, that grit that gets you through because you've got another option. It's got a bit like
definitely.
burning your boats, right? If you want to
Yeah,
do
that's
something,
it.
put
You're
yourself
going
in
to
the
take the
island, burn the
island
boats, you can't go back, and there's no other option.
100%.
So I think I speak to lots of business owners, and they've all got a very similar mentality. It's like I've got this idea. I know it's going to work. It's going to be hard to get there, but I will get there, and nothing will get in the way. And they're the ones
Yeah,
that win, right? And so
yeah.
you said was that 7 years ago? Did you say?
It is, yeah, 7 years in
Right.
October it was. Yeah, first of
Okay.
October.
So when you first started, what did the outlook? How was the outlook for you from a earning
Well,
potential from clientele? What does it look
it
like
was
now?
it was it was tough because I remember it was exciting. I was like, we're actually doing this. This is really exciting, and you're like, well, it's a risk, but this is exciting. So we rode that for about 3 months, um, and 3 months of not working. It was the first time I'd ever been like that.
Yeah.
Even when I was at university the first time, I was working part time, so I'd never not worked.
Yeah.
So that was weird. Sitting around at home just watching daytime TV and stuff. It was pretty tough. Um, Setting up was exciting. Buying all new stuff, and there's all this new opportunity, and I've got a new space and a new development in the city, and it's great. And then I remember it was like, done, I'm open now. And I was sat in a space with all this new stuff. And I was like, I'm literally one person sitting in a space that no one knows anything about. I guess I've got to start getting promoting. And then that was that. It became less about doing a session or doing treatment and more about I need to get the word out. I need to
Yeah.
start learning everything I need to know about business and running a business and getting a mentor. I need to start getting out there because otherwise I've got maybe 6 months, and if I don't make it work in 6 months, I'm going to be in trouble. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was the learning curve. I did lots of stuff, lots of things that some worked, some didn't work. Um, it's a massive, massive, massive learning curve, but I'm so grateful that I did.
What worked for you then? What was the marketing channel that you went, right? This is starting to bear some
To
fruit.
be honest, it was what I hadn't anticipated was the importance of building relationships.
Yeah.
Um, I tried lots of fancy things, some giveaways, some free sessions. I tried sponsoring athletes. I tried all kinds of things, but actually, the thing that was working, the thing that I eventually settled on was that if you do something good for someone and they tell someone else, they're gonna keep coming back. You can run
Yeah.
your Facebook ads and Google ads and lots of campaigns and spend lots of money. I spent a lot of money on stuff, and that's great, but it doesn't really build. It builds awareness, but it doesn't really build people that are willing to come back time and time again. So I think I tried really hard to build relationships. I got out. I was speaking to people. I got to meet a lot of good people that helped me to provide platforms like you've done with me today. There are lots of people out there that are willing to help people that are really looking to push
Yeah.
and go somewhere. And like you said earlier on, I think people recognize people that are trying to go places and are
Yeah.
always willing to help. So, I kind of mentor a couple of people that are trying to do things locally, and I think that really helped me. And so I'm willing, because when this guy was helping me initially, his name's Greg, and when he was helping me, it was like, where's this guy? What's the deal? What are you
Yeah.
getting from this?
Yeah.
It's like you've done really well, you're successful in business, you can basically do what you need to do when you want to do it. Like I want to be in that position but why are you helping me? Like, what have
Mm.
I done to, see? And Lauren was always saying, you sure? Like, are you sure? Is this, and you kind of think, well, I just get a feeling, and he was a good guy, and he helped me, brand it and get things out and try things out, and he connected me to other people. I still had to do the hard work,
Yeah.
I had to go places and talk to people and engage with people, and obviously with the disability, it's difficult for me at times. But I think people see my vulnerability and how open I am about it, and they're willing to kind of say, actually, this guy's really got something,
Yeah.
and we're happy to kind of help him out.
I think, yeah.
So,
I mean, I see a very similar pattern with entrepreneurial people because they, especially people that have gone through the shit. They've come from nothing. They've had nobody really help them, and they've gone through the process. And they're like, "This guy's 10 years behind me. I know what he's about to go through. I'd love
yeah,
to, give something back." And we've been lucky as a company because a lot of our clients, like you just said, are successful people, but they don't mind offering a bit of advice or spreading the word a little bit. And as you
yeah,
mentioned earlier, I think the relationship element to what we do is absolutely massive. And I see, especially in the weight loss space, there's a lot of companies that they're doing a lot of money, but they've completely missed that relationship element
yeah,
in how they do things. And with what we do here, we've kind of geared everything we do to be able to scale, but keep that very much human relationship element
yeah,
without having to have 500 people in a group that you never meet and are just at the end of a Facebook ad. So I
yeah.
think it's really important that you do get those type of people around you. And as you mentioned, when those types of people see someone that's really working hard and really trying, they're like, right, let's give this guy a little bit of a step up, right? Is that kind of the experience you had?
Yeah, because I think, and this is something that I spoke about in one of my videos, without giving away too much. But I was very much a case of, if Lauren tells me to make something work, I'm gonna work my socks off to make it work.
Hmm.
But if I don't have the knowledge, I am literally putting all my efforts into every single thing. Now, I might try 10 things and nine of them things are not going to work, but I still have to put in as much effort into them.
Yeah.
Whereas having someone that's been there before, they can say, well, actually, I see you like looking at lots of different stuff. Just focus on that one thing
Hmm.
and really hone in on that. And that's kind of what I found was the most useful is knowing where to focus your attention and know when to quit, like know when to leave something that isn't really working.
Yeah.
I've had so many times where I've done things and it's not worked out the way I thought it was going to work out. It's a bit of a running joke with me and Lauren. It's like, oh, this is the next thing. This is the next big thing that's going to, at some point, one of them's going to click, it's
Yeah.
going to click and go crazy.
Yeah.
But you've got to try. You've got to try these things. If it doesn't work, just recognize it and leave it and move on to the next thing. But it's always moving on to the next thing that you cannot just stop and back it off. You've got to
Yeah.
always be looking for the next thing.
Absolutely. And I think you've hit on a really important subject there, which is kind of you know people's fear of failure and having something that doesn't work. And again, when you meet entrepreneurial people like yourself, you're very entrepreneurial. You don't look at it as a failure. It's just a step along the way. And you kind
Yeah,
of said the next thing, but it probably is not the next thing. It's just a progression or a step forward from what you just did, right?
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it. You just you make that mistake, or you get the learning from it, and you kind of stand back up and progress it, taking all the knowledge that you've just been dealt, and it doesn't always feel like that. It
yeah,
feels like failure. But you know what? It's not. It's just a way of you learning, and every opportunity you can learn something and take that on to your next
yeah.
step.
Just keep
That's,
going.
yeah, 100%. Just got to keep it going.
And it's very very similar because we use this comparison quite regularly because if you kind of look into what we do as it comes to True Fitness, we're very much about a healthier global business community for all. So we focus on kind of working with CEOs, managing directors, business owners, right? So we call them business leaders. That's the kind of the way we package it up. The reason we do that is because when you work with that person at the top of the business, it has like a trickle down effect. So suddenly, they lose weight, they get in shape, they're looking good, they're feeling good, they're sleeping good. That positivity, that kind of, that change they've made starts to have a positive impact on the team. So this executives will say, have you seen John? Have you seen Jane? They look great. That inspires them. And then it inspires the management team, and then it inspires the staff, and that inspires, local community, it inspires the kids. So that's kind of our approach to helping as many people as possible. But the kind of the way that you spoke about, not giving up and keep pushing forward is very much the same when it comes to health and fitness. And what we see, I don't know if you agree with this, but we see very much a mindset in people in general, which is about, going on a diet or going on a plan, a short-term plan. So it's always about kind of like a quick fix or something they can do to get that result really quickly, which is great. But really, just like business, you can't stop for 6 months. You can't stop running your business for 6 months, then start again. You have to keep going, even if it's walking pace or you move a step backward. Just keep moving forward. How does that kind of resonate with you? Have you seen that yourself?
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting because I have my two heads. I've got my client centered head, and then I've got the business head,
Yeah,
and both of them overlap massively. And even in the I'm doing some work with a drug and alcohol service in Norfolk, and it all overlaps. Everyone's the same, the people. We're in a society in a day and age where you can literally order something, get it, food comes in an hour. Amazon delivers stuff from all over the world in a day.
yeah,
So when you say to someone, well, that's great that you want to lose weight, but we need to be looking 12 months down the line before,
yeah,
but I want to do £2 a week. I want to do £3 a week. It's like, yeah, well, that's great. That's what you want to do, but it might not work
yeah,
like that for you. So let's
yeah,
look at you in 12 months' time. It's a journey, and unfortunately, I think in an industry where the big companies are advertising stuff as very quick fix, immediate results, 12
yeah,
week plans, 8 week plans, 4 week plans, get to a marathon in 2 months, you can run 100 miles in 6 months' time. People get really used to that. So their expectations of what they can achieve in a small amount of time, it's not really in kilter with what we
yeah,
know is going to work. And that's just slow, small progressions, but done consistently for the rest of your life. And you take that mentality. It's a lifestyle shift. I've got clients who keep track of how long we've been training together, and it's like, wow, we're up to like 7 years now.
yeah,
And it isn't because they wanted the quick fix. It's because they see that it's buying into a whole lifestyle change. It's, I want to eat more healthy. I want to exercise more. I want to do more things, and you're a great person to help me do that and keep me accountable.
yeah.
So it becomes less about, I'm going to fix you in 12 weeks, and more about, actually, I need you in my life for the long term, because I need that progression all the way through life, not just sadly a quick fix. And don't get me wrong, we get those people. We get, I work with those people that are, I'm getting married in 3 weeks' time. What
Get me
can you do
sorted.
for me? And it's like,
Yeah,
right, we're going to do blah, 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 blah.
yeah.
And we'll get in the best shape we can in that time. But the people that I like working with are the people that are sort of like, actually, I want to make this a long-term commitment, really change your life rather than just trying to achieve something little in a short amount of time.
Absolutely. I think it's, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's all about those kind of lifestyle changes. It's a term we use a lot, which is lifestyle changes, but, you know, the word life is the most important part. Like, you do this forever. I mean, if you look at anyone that's in good shape, you say to them, how long have you been training for? They'll go, well, 15 years. And they
Yeah.
never stop. It's just part of their life. And unless you can kind of create that, habit, that change in your lifestyle, you're going to really struggle to keep yourself in good shape, because unless it's the first thing that comes in your mind when you go to have a meal, or you go to the choice of sending another email or going to the gym, unless you can start making that better choice more regularly than not, then you're really going to struggle. I think that's what a lot of our clients, all people we talk to, they really struggle with that, because a lot of our guys, they will be very successful. They're financially stable, for want of a better phrase. They can afford anything. They can do what they want, when they want, how they want. and them kind of having to get their head around the idea they're going to have to change their lifestyle and not
Mm.
be drinking 4 times a week, and not be eating out every single weekend and having 2 meals. It's a massive shift for them. But the ones that do and actually realize, right, well, if I can just do this for the short term and start to change my habits a little bit, I can go back to that, but I'll never go back to it the way that I was. It's going to
Mm.
be 30% or 40% of what I did. I can still have a great life, but there's going to have to be a little bit of rebalancing. You can't just be drinking and partying, like a nutcase and expect to live to 90 and be fit. It's just not going to happen. So there's
No.
always going to be this, balancing act. So yeah, it's a topic I'm quite passionate about, because it's really interesting to kind of, and you've got that psychology background and you probably know more about it than me, but look at that behavior pattern that people get themselves into. And for me, I see it as like a challenge to try and turn that person around. It really excites me to kind of get them from, where they are, which is a nutcase, basically,
Yeah.
turn that person around to start seeing them change. And the great thing is that when they do start to change, that they're over the moon. It's such a big change for them compared to someone that's just like trying to lose 4 pound. Right, these people are trying to turn the whole health around, and you can
Yeah.
see it. We've got their PA is texting us saying, "Oh my God, they're so much more happy. They're much more, so much easier to deal with." You've got the wife texting you saying, "Oh my God, he's great. He's amazing. He's so much better with the kids." I think people really underestimate just how much being fit and healthy has a massive positive impact in your life. Not just I look good. It's the list is endless. The amount of things it has a positive impact. Just from your experience, then, is there kind of one story, one client that you've worked with that you can kind of, obviously without mentioning any names, you don't want to, but just think about them having an amazing transformation. Just anything that pops in your head that really kind of stuck with you.
Um. Yeah. It's there's one lady that I think we started working together pretty much when I moved to Norwich, and I work with a few. There's a few people that I know they'll be watching, thinking, "Oh, is he talking about me?" But to be honest, there's a few ladies that I train that are in very high positions
Yeah,
within companies, doing highly stressful jobs, and the training, the structure in the training is the easy part. That's I think that's what I didn't comprehend when I was first out in the business, was that the training, the exercise, the lifting weights, as long as you're lifting weights, it really doesn't matter how you split your training, how you structure it, what you do when you do. Basically, that's fine, right? But the thing with these people, and working with people like you say that are in these high stress environments, big workloads, big salaries, but you're going to earn it by giving your soul to your
yeah,
workplace.
yeah,
It's so hard for them just to see a way to fit things in. It's like, I know I should be exercising, but I just can't see a way of getting to it. I know I should be eating healthy, but I've only got 30 seconds to eat all
yeah,
day. I can't hydrate because I can't go to the toilet in this meeting. And so I work with so many people like that, that actually just getting them to feel fitter, feel healthier, get through whatever they've got to get through without having a breakdown and without, completely turning to alcohol and drugs,
mm,
without completely breaking down, burning out. For me, that's the big achievement. And it might not sound like it's a big achievement to a normal person. You kind of want this person was 30 stone when I first started with them, and now they're 10 stone and they're ripped and they're
yeah,
doing blah, blah, blah. But for me, it's like taking someone that could very well be on the list for a heart attack or diabetes
yeah,
or a nervous breakdown, completely. I've seen how much a mental health breakdown can absolutely ruin someone.
mhm,
And being able to work with someone that you can tell is on that path to early, an early death, a severe illness, a
yeah,
mental health breakdown, and actually keeping them functioning, like you said, the PA, the wife, whoever phoning you up saying, That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Just getting those people just to be able to exercise and be healthy and be fit, that for me is, why I do what I do. So it's
Go
I can't name you one person,
on.
but when you were saying that, I was
Yeah.
thinking, well, actually, there's blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
To be honest, they're all like it. They're all, they're all. I mean, I've also got one guy, and he'll know who he is from how I describe him, but he is completely the other way, right? So he hates exercise with a passion. Every session, we've been training together for about 3 years. Hates exercise. He'll tell me, still hated it, but you made that kind of all right. And I think we have this joke that he can still count on two hands the amount of sessions. It's 7 that he's actually enjoyed. He's gone, do you know what? I actually enjoyed that. 7 sessions. He hates exercise. He, compulsive eating, really struggles with his mental health. Really, really tough thing. I remember having, because I didn't appreciate mental health, and we spoke about this before, and this is what has really sparked my kind of next obsession. But the first time I really dealt with someone that had a real mental health issue, I 100% underestimated, the severity of it.
Yeah.
Um, and we were having a chat on the phone. This was quite early into our relationship. He said, I want to lose weight. And I was saying, well, look, let's just focus on your protein for this week. So how much protein you eating? Basically, would eat no protein. So it's like, well, that will help you, control the little hunger attacks and the little cravings and stuff. So let's increase that. Why don't we try and increase that to like 100 grams? And we basically almost had a meltdown on the phone. Just the thought of, but I can't do that. My normal routine is this, and you're now telling me I've got to do that. I can't do that. I was like, well, why don't we meet in the middle? And but that point, it's already too far gone.
Yeah.
So he passed the phone to his partner, and we had a chat, and she sort of talked him around, and we calmed him down. And it's at that point I realised actually this is really serious stuff here. Like, you're dealing with people that have got real issues, and we've worked together. And he now would not be without me as a trainer. He hates exercise, but he said, like, he will do it because he knows it's good for him. He knows whatever. But the relationship that we've built and the understanding that we have is, I don't train him like I train any of my other clients, because if I did, he'd just switch the camera off and that would be done.
Right.
But for me, if I can keep him chatting about, about music and about comedy and about all the stuff that he enjoys, and I can get him lifting stuff, picking up heavy things and putting them down and stretching and mobilizing, he doesn't know what I'm doing. He just thinks we're having a nice chat about stuff. But in the background, I'm going, right, I really need his knees to be better, and his ankles this, and his balance is terrible. So I'm going to just keep working little bits in, and that's it, So in terms of like a big transformation, like, that stands out for me as one of, it's like a lifesaver. He says all the time, it's like a lifesaver. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be doing it, and I would probably be, wherever by now. Suicide.
Saving people's lives, Rob. It's
It is, mate. It
it's
is,
what
and that's it. So yeah, you see it. I see it all the time on Instagram and Facebook. The kind of, this is them before, this is them after, and they look ripped and they look awesome. But actually, they're not the kind of clients that I work with anymore. The clients I work with are the people that need someone like me to just come in and say, actually, if you can't do half an hour workout, let's at least just do 10 minutes. Let's find the best 10 minutes we can find and get you doing it. And those people then go, oh yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. So let's start there. And then they're always texting going, well, I did an hour of this, blah, blah, blah. They're always delivering more, but in that moment, they just can't see the wood for the tree. So, having that approach and being a bit more people-centered, for me, it's about the kind of health and well-being rather than, how fit and buff can I make you look,
Yeah, I think you've hit on a good point there, actually, because I don't normally have kind of personal trainers, coaches on my call, so you're opening up things in my brain that wouldn't normally talk about, because we were from the same industry. But I think when you're first starting out as a personal trainer, that, let's imagine the person's just been in the personal training industry for 2 months. They couldn't handle the type of client that you now look after, because and
No.
we do as well, because it takes you 15 years of practice to understand what it takes to actually get that person to change. So I
Yeah,
think, there's a
definitely.
natural progression as a PT, which generally is, let's work with people that just want to train. Then it's like, okay, let's get more into maybe a bit of weight loss. Then let's get into kind of transformation, and the clients become kind of more complex, and, you know,
Definitely.
for want of a better phrase, harder cases. There's more kind of elements that you need to look after, and that's, I kind of bang this drum a lot, but I feel like sometimes within the health and fitness industry, people have got this generalization, this general idea that all personal trainers are just personal trainers, and there's
Definitely.
not. There's Skodas and there's Ferraris, and the difference between those two is, a fuck ton of experience. It's
Absolutely. Yeah.
knowing what to do and when to do it. It's understanding exactly what levers you need to pull and when, and having that understanding of how to kind of, you know, push someone and challenge them to get the change that they want, despite all of the things, as you mentioned with your clients, all of the stuff going on in their life, which is stopping them from getting the goal. Because, I don't think people often understand this, but, if you're working a 60-hour week and you drink twice a week and you hardly sleep and you're 3 stone overweight, you are pretty much a heart attack waiting to happen at any moment. So
Yeah.
you just going to the gym and going the cross trainer for half an hour twice a week, that's not doing anything. You need to have a full overhaul of everything you're doing. And that
Definitely.
really, it sounds like what we do is kind of similar to you. It's that kind of overall holistic approach to looking at every element and pulling every lever, because, if you can hit a couple of them, that's going to get the change. It's not going to be,
Definitely.
let's sit on the cross trainer for half an hour and talk about our weekends. It's about, let's get some results here. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting to hear you say that, because, as I said, I don't talk to many PTs. I'm normally talking to business people. So that kind of popped up in my brain. But let's keep this moving, because we could bore people
Yeah,
with our
man.
PT chat for
We
6 hours.
yeah we
Let's
Absolutely.
keep rolling. What I'm interested to talk about, because, you told me briefly about the journey when we spoke on the phone, but,
Yeah.
an obvious question that kind of pops into my head is, with your your blindness, you said you're classified as blind. How did that kind of come about? What's the journey? How do you manage that? How do you kind of do what you do at such a high level with that disability? I'm really interested to hear a bit more about that.
So I mean, I think the first thing is that I've always been obsessed by money. Um, from a young age, I always said to my mum, I'm going to be a millionaire at some point in my life. I don't know how, but I'll be a millionaire.
Yeah,
And we're not there yet. Um, but that's always been my driver. It's always been my parents both worked full time when me and my sister were little, and seeing the kind of drive and just my mum, she hated her job, absolutely hated it. And my dad was a police officer. Shift work. They literally were working every hour they could for me and my sister. So I guess I've always grown up with that as a bit of a driver. And my dad was only ever able to do all the stuff that he did because he was so fit. So he
right.
used to run all the time. He would cycle, 30 miles to work and back, on his road bike in the. I mean, he had an accident on the way to work. Carried on cycling for about 2 months. He had a bit of a backache, but it turned out that he'd got a prolapsed disc in his spine.
Oof.
But he would still cycle backwards and forwards to work, and he'd still do his runs. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
he had that. That was
Full
kind of
stop.
it. So for me personally, as an adult growing up into the fitness industry, it's very much look. I want to help people. At the start, I wanted to make money. I thought money was the driver. So it's like, look, I'm doing a job based on commission. So the better I do, the more motivated I am, the more money I'm going to make. Blah blah blah. And you kind of learn very quickly that is not the way that you become wealthy and successful. It's a good way to end up being burnt out completely flat, and and really thinking about your life. So when I came into business, it was like, actually the driver isn't about making money, because you don't get into the fitness industry to be wealthy unless you own one of the companies. I think people know that it was kind of a profession that people that liked sport that weren't that clever got into to try and help encourage other people that
Yeah.
were clever, that could pay someone to tell them how to get on a treadmill and run. That was kind of the thought. Personal training was seen as like oh, that's nice. What are you going to do when you grow up kind of career? Um, but I'd always had this drive. I thought I really love it, and I love helping people when I've got something. And then when I started getting into the psychology and the deeper side of things, and started to understand that it's more about the lifestyle, that drove me on further. So the fact that I knew that I had a disease called retinitis pigmentosa, which is a degenerative eye disorder. So it basically means that my field of vision is decreasing as it goes. So I always knew that was there. So that was like an extra driver for me. It's like, right, I'm going to get myself established so that when that happens, when I'm between 30 and 40, I was told I'll be set up, so I'll be fine. So I was on a bit of a tear to kind of achieve what I could in that time. And it was just burning me out. I'd just burn myself out all the time. So stepping away from that and setting up business on my own, I kind of realized very quickly, well, if I'm going to do this long term, I've got to look after myself first. Because if I burn myself out, I'm not working, so I'm not getting paid anything. So the first thing that I had to recognize was I need to look after myself. I need to look after my eyesight. I need to be fit and strong myself to keep what I've got in my eyes. So everything was good. It'd been a very stable deterioration, and my central vision was always something I could rely on. But it started to get to a point where I couldn't really rely on that anymore. So the field of vision, is narrow, but also then what I was seeing in front of me was starting to get a bit iffy as well. So I count myself very lucky that I've had. I mean, I'm 42, and I know I don't look it, but I'm 42, and I've had 42 amazing years of seeing everything that I've wanted to see. So I look at people that wake up in the morning or have an accident and lose their sight straight away is like, I don't know how they cope with that.
Yeah.
So I've been able to work myself into a position where I've got a skill set that when I can't see anything, I can still work.
Yeah.
That was kind of what I was thinking. And then basically what happens as I get older, as the year goes on, I just find something else a little more challenging than what I did the year before. So being how I've been with sport and business, it means that when I can no longer do something that I could do, it's like, well, that kind of sucks. But, well, I still need to get to work. I still need to see these clients. So maybe I just need to buy a bigger screen so I can kind of see a bit closer. Maybe I need to just be careful that I don't walk into that lamppost on my way to that session or, whatever. And when I was starting to meet people in Norwich, I got connected to Vision Norfolk. It was the North Norwich Association for the Blind. And the ophthalmology department at the hospital sent me there as a patient. It was just so humbling, like to just be around blind people just kind of doing their thing. Some of them working there, like doing stuff, and some of them kind of in the mindset of like, I haven't got sight. Some of them don't have hearing, and that's kind of life's over. Like their life becomes just my identity is as a blind person, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I never wanted that for my life because I just feel like if you have that mindset, you kind of get left behind, and life sucks, man. Like life is hard. People are nasty, and the world revolves whether you like it or not. So you can either sit at home and kind of, be left behind, or you can say, you know what, this is what I'm dealing with, but I'm still better than everyone else because, that's who I am. So me being me, that was my mindset. I'd always been told I shouldn't be doing stuff. I shouldn't be on a bike. I shouldn't be doing triathlons. I shouldn't be doing whatever. And I went and did it anyway. A bit like my dad with his bust up back getting on his bike. It was like, actually, I'll know at what point I can't cycle on a bike anymore.
Yeah.
And it happened to Ironman Weymouth in the 70 point. It's a horrible race. I had the worst day. And that was the point where I knew I could no longer do triathlon on my own. So it took me like 3 years to come away from it. And now I kind of fully went into para triathlon. So I now bike on a tandem, and I'm tied to a guy called Andy in the swim, and we run together in the run.
Brilliant.
And it's terrifying, but I absolutely love it. So all the way through my life, I've kind of used my eyesight deteriorating as a way to just, well, I can't do that anymore, so I'm just going to adapt things and keep moving forwards. So I didn't really feel the need to keep going back to hospital, because you're supposed to get checked every year, but I'd had enough of being prodded and poked and told that, well, it's getting a bit worse. It's like, look, I know when things are getting worse, so I don't need someone to tell me that. So I didn't go to a hospital, to an ophthalmologist for a long time. And then if I wanted to be classified for para-triathlon, I needed to get my site classified properly.
Right.
So I knew exactly what it's going to be. It was a lot of testing, a lot of people going, oh yeah, oh no, that's not very good.
Right.
But I knew I had to have it done, and I'd considered myself as like visually impaired, so there's an issue there, but whatever. My actual classification now is severely sight impaired, which is what they used to call it blind or sight impaired, is how it was. So I'm now severely sight impaired.
Okay.
And that's that. And all it did was, it just, having that classification, I already knew my eyesight was that bad, but having someone actually say, this is it now, this is where you're at, you're a blind man, that's it. It took me a few days to kind of process that, even though nothing had changed, like everything had changed.
Yeah.
And in classic kind of Rob form, I was like, I need to throw my energy into something. I need to do something, and I feel like I need to help people. And that then kind of spurns the latest idea of the YouTube channel, and another kind of conversation with Lauren going, okay, so this is what we're going for now, is it? So yeah, that is the project that I'm now on. But it's spanned from kind of like, I was actually labelled something, and that really affected me mentally. Nothing had changed. I knew my eyesight had got worse over the years, but having someone actually say, yeah, that's where you are now, you're a blind person, it was kind of like,
yeah,
wow. So yeah, it was kind of a light bulb, like that epiphany, the classic sort of light bulb moment of like, I'm 42, I'm here, and I've got 20 years of me studying and learning that I was holding for myself to kind of make myself successful in business. But actually what I've realized now is, you know what, I need to get this out of me. Like, I need to help as many people as I can. And, that's kind of it. And I'm using the disability and, raising awareness of disabled professionals just to try and reach people, to inspire them to say, look, I'm not the smartest person, I'm not the best looking person in the world, but what I am doing is I'm using what I've got to help other people, and people seem to respond well to it.
Brilliant. So just that leads me on to kind of the YouTube channel. What is the YouTube channel called? Where can people check you out?
Yeah, so they can check me out on YouTube. The channel is called Blind Focus with Rob Sears, and kind of the inside scoop on that is that it's kind of an automated. It's probably the wrong word, but basically, I'm not in the videos at the moment. The videos are my creation, so I'm writing the scripts for it.
Right.
I write the content, but then I have someone that sounds fantastic doing the voiceover, and I have another guy putting together the kind of harebrained ideas I have for a video, and they put it all together, and it's on the channel. Um, because I just wanted the content to be about the content, not about the person in front of the camera, right? Because so many times you go to these personality channels on YouTube and it's like, man, they sound rough or they don't look right or whatever, and people judge it straight away. So instead
Yeah.
of listening to or watching the content, they're so caught up on what it looks like and what it sounds like. I was like, I don't want my message getting lost like that. So so that was kind of the idea to start with. But actually, what has happened now is that as I've got into the project, I'm like, actually, I want to be like Stan Lee. I want to start making some little cameo appearances. Me and Laura went off to Budapest a couple of weeks ago, and I got a videographer to follow us around. You know, the completely weird stuff. Lauren was just like, "You owe me massive for this," you know. But we spent 4 hours in Budapest being videoed to get content, which I'm then going to use on a YouTube channel. So it will we'll start drifting into the YouTube channel. But the whole idea behind it is it's motivation, it's self help, and it's based on some work that I've been doing over the last year and a half with a drug and alcohol service, and you know, with my client, you know, mental health is completely screwed in this country, possibly around the world. And we were speaking before we went live about how it's out there more. People are talking about it more, but people don't know where to go with that. And I was thinking through lockdown, I wasn't sure about health and fitness. You know, I wanted to be helping people, and if I wasn't able to be helping them, then what do I do with my life? And I thought I might go back to university and do like a master's in counseling psychology, you know, PhD maybe. That would be quite fancy. So I sort of thought, well, I'll look into it, and I needed some clinical experience because obviously I've only worked with sports people. You know, I've helped people with eating disorders and performance anxiety and getting them ready for high level competition, but I'd never worked in a clinical setting. So I thought, I'll go and do that. So it's been an eye opening experience for sure. And I have a lot of admiration for people that dedicate their lives solely to helping people, you know, that are recovering drug and alcohol, you know, survivors. It's crazy. But what that has shown me is my skill set is so valuable to so many people, no matter what walk of life they're in. Um, and mental health is just something that isn't being satisfied at the moment. So I wanted to combine my sort of background in sport to do a little bit of, you know, self help, a bit of motivation, a bit of inspirational stuff, some mental health stuff, you know, some ways just to help people calm their anxiety, build their confidence, sleep better, you know, a few little ideas on how to eat better, all these kind of things. So I kind of think, you know what, I can set up a channel, I can talk about this stuff all day.
Yeah.
So why don't I? And it took for someone to tell me that I'd, you know, my eyesight had changed for me to go, you know what, this is focusing my attention on this project. And that's where blind focus came from. Because if you do something with blind focus, then I believe that you'll achieve great things. But from a personal point of view, my business was focused on fitness. I'm now a blind man. So I was like, I'm going to smash the two together and it sounds quite cool.
I
So
love it.
people that know me and people that have watched this now will kind of see the deeper meaning behind it. You know, I'm a blind man now, so that is the channel name. But actually, from a motivation, self help point of view, if you do something with absolute focus, you know, laser focus. You know, you focus on your food, focus on your sleep, your work, your relationships, your wealth, your business. You know, you're gonna go far.
Yeah,
And that's the
and
whole
it's
point.
not. There's not that many people that behave in that way, right? There's not that many people that focus on their goal and go after it relentlessly. So, in my opinion, you know, it's challenging and it's difficult, but I wouldn't have it. I'm sure you're the same. I wouldn't have it any other way. It's
Yeah.
you know the thing you're trying to build. that's the journey, that's the purpose, that's what gets you up in the morning.
Definitely.
That's what, my kids tell me off for being on the computer all the time. But that's what it takes. It's that obsessiveness that gets you to where you need to be. So, man, hats off to you. I think it's an amazing thing. We're putting this out as a live, and we'll talk about that afterwards. But we'll make sure that we get the link for your YouTube channel
Yeah,
shared
perfect.
in this, because it'd be great to share that with
Yeah,
as
it'd
many
be
people as
awesome, man.
possible.
Definitely.
Brilliant. Well,
Definitely.
look,
No, I
Rob,
appreciate
thank
it.
you for your time today. I really appreciate it, mate. Great to chat to you, and we'll catch up very soon.
Cheers, Cam. Thanks.
Brilliant.
Thanks for
Thank you.
watching. Cheers, man. Thank you.